Okay, how y'all doing? Welcome to the vlog. It is a little bit different vlog from the ones that I usually do. We're gonna kind of skip out of the usual schedule because I want this to be kind of urgent vlog to get out there because this information is kind of important for musicians. We're gonna talk about guitars and we're gonna talk about tone woods particularly because there's something kind of big has happened in the world of musical instruments and, well, kind of conservation of wood. For a very long time now, we know that there's been this magical thing about the Brazilian rosewood being like the magical wood to use on a guitar. But the problem has been that the Brazilian rosewood was very, very overused and it actually started to be in danger. It became one of the endangered species. There was still a lot of Brazilian rosewood around, so you were allowed to use the ones that were already cut down before 1992 when it was put on the list of endangered species. There's a pretty hefty trade restrictions on it. Now, at the moment, there's been the CITES Summit, which is Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. It's been going on in Johannesburg in South Africa, and in there, I believe it's about 181 or 180. Quite a lot of countries, anyway, have agreed on putting all 300 species of rosewood on that list, which obviously becomes a bit of an issue. So what does it mean in practical sense for a guitar player? Well, the thing is that the rosewood has been used widely on guitars. It's probably thought as the kind of the more fancier of the tone woods on the back and side of the guitar. It's also I wouldn't say most, but a lot of guitars have it on as a fingerboard. Some of them are on a bridge as well. And this becomes a bit of an issue because the way it basically works is that they said that there's a trade restriction. So now every one of those 184 or 81 countries, they have to have their own laws to force these restrictions. Like this is an overall guideline that these countries have agreed on that, okay, we're going to force this. How they force it is up to every individual country. For example, in the United States of America, basically, if you bring in a guitar into the country, you need to declare what all the materials on it are. And if you have the Brazilian rosewood on your guitar, you have to prove that it's pre-1992. If you do the other way around, if you bring guitar into EU, it's actually even more complicated because in EU, the law is a little bit stricter. The only case where you can there's only two cases where you can bring a guitar with a rosewood, Brazilian rosewood into EU, import a guitar into EU. One of them, if it's an antique instrument, which is, I think it's pre-1944. So that's pretty damn old guitar, you know. Or the other case is that if the instrument was originally built in EU, you can bring it back to EU. But you have to be able to prove all this as well. And here's the thing. You can say that, okay, this is my right, this is my right, this is my right. None of that matters anything if you're at the border and the border control says that, okay, this is what we think and this is what we're going to act on. The only way you can fight them is if you have the facts and the piece of paper right in front of you there. There is a thing, apparently it came about a year ago, a few years ago. There is apparently a thing in EU and in States called a passport you can get for an instrument, which is basically a piece of paper that allows you to travel with it, and it saves you all the hassle if there is any of that hassle. The thing is, 9 out of 10 times when you travel with an instrument, nobody gives a damn. That's a fact. Like I travel with instruments all the time. Nobody's ever asked me what wood was your guitar made out of. But all it takes is that one time, one guy who actually knows more about this and he's decided to force on it, or they might be in a particular country more strict on them, or they just might have a crackdown day whenever you arrive somewhere. And what happens is they take your instrument, and until you can prove that you have to prove them that rosewood on a guitar is not Brazilian rosewood. You have to prove them that if it is Brazilian rosewood, that it's pre 1992, or in EU a lot older than that. Like, there's no point of going crying about it that this is unfair. It's becoming the law, and that's just the way it is. So I thought also I'll talk to you a little bit more about the tone woods, because I think us musicians as consumers, we should be more aware of these things, and I think we should take responsibility for a lot of it as well. I got two guitars here with me. I got my main guitar, which is the Musima, which is a battered old workhorse of mine, which has a cedar top. Cedar top is very soft top, because of that it has a lot of bruises and knocks, and it's scratched to bits, and it has mahogany back and sides. It does have rosewood fingerboard, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think the bridge is not rosewood as well. Is any of this rosewood in my guitar right now something that I'd say it's, that has to be the tone wood for it? No, not at all. I could very happily have an ebony fingerboard, ebony bridge. But at the time, I can understand when this was made, rosewood wasn't an issue as much as it is right now. This was made back in, I think it's 1993 or something like that. I can't remember quite, but I think I tracked it down to 1993 or 1992, something like that. You can see that, at the time, the color of the rosewood looked really nice on this, so that's probably why they went for it. If I was to buy my next guitar, I would think twice before I even had rosewood on it, just simply because it is becoming an issue now. It'll take a little bit of time before they start enforcing the laws, but in time I think it's only going to get stricter and stricter and stricter, so I think it's a good idea to look into some other alternatives. I personally like mahogany as a tone wood. I think it's a lot more open from get-go, whereas rosewood takes time to age. I do have a rosewood instrument here. I have my Journey Instruments guitar, this little travel thingy, which is wonderful. The back and sides of it is absolutely beautiful rosewood. It is not Brazilian rosewood, just to let you know. If I was buying this again right now, I'd probably go for a different tone wood, because this whole scenario is going to make me think more and more about the whole subject of how we need to be more responsible of the tone woods that we use on our guitars. I personally don't think that I don't buy into the whole Brazilian rosewood being the ultimate tone wood stuff, because I don't think there are people who can say that you put a guitar with just normal any other rosewood or Brazilian rosewood side by side. There are people who are going to turn around and say that that sounds better. Blind test, I doubt many people are going to see much of a difference. We're talking about such minute little things that your ability as a musician is not going to be relying on that rosewood being Brazilian rosewood. That's a fact. Now that all of the rosewood is placed on those trade restrictions, I think we honestly have to, as musicians and consumers of musical instruments, that we buy those instruments, we need to start demanding changes in the tone wood. I'm more than happy to go with a mahogany body, back and sides. I'm even more than happy to try alternatives. I don't have much experience. I did have a couple of Taylors over the years which have different tone woods. I'm not a big fan of Taylor guitars, but that's a different story completely. I think what they're doing in sense of preserving wood, and what they're doing in sense of trying to introduce alternative materials is absolutely wonderful. I personally think that we should just get rid of rosewood as a material for fingerboards and bridges. I think that's perfectly simple thing to do, and I would like to see all the major manufacturers actually do that. I think we can work around that perfectly fine. I think that's not going to be a deal breaker. If you insist on having a rosewood back and sides guitar, you're obviously going to have to now look into the things that it will eventually become more difficult to travel with it, and it will. If you have a Brazilian rosewood guitar, I honestly tell you, don't travel with it. That's my advice. Simple as like, it's just you do run a risk of somebody actually taking it off you, it being confiscated, unless you have the proper paperwork to go with it. We all get very attached to our instruments, but if we don't take a responsibility for our environment, then we're all screwed. Simple as that. Like there's other things like ivory as well used to be used in the nuts and the saddles on the guitar, and sometimes even the tuning machines, the tuning pegs themselves. I have no time for ivory being used in musical instruments anymore at this day and age. I think that's ridiculous. There was the tortoise shell was used for scratch plates and sometimes for picks, and again another one that, you know, we have absolutely perfect alternatives to all of these. And I think rosewood is going to be exactly the same thing. I think there's going to be perfect alternatives to it. The thing is, what we need to do, and we need to start doing this as musicians, we need to demand this. I come from Scandinavia. I know that in Scandinavia we take very good care of our forests. We replant them. We, you know, whatever timber we use, it's been replanted. I think that's where, whatever the tone woods that we are going to be using in our guitars in the future, it has to become from a renewable source where it can be replanted again and again and again. I think this would have to become a regulation within the instrument making world, because if it doesn't, we're just encouraging the people to harvest the wood in kind of irresponsible way. And that's my take on that. So just to round up what I said in the beginning, all species of rosewood have been put on the trade restrictions, which means in the future traveling with a rosewood guitar might become a bit of an issue. So think twice before you get a rosewood guitar. Please do become more aware of what wood is renewable and what the source of the wood is, and give a helping hand for companies who do take a responsibility of this. Yeah, that's my bit on this subject of tone woods of guitar. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you believe the hype of the Brazilian rosewood being the magical wood of the guitar? Let me know in the comments, and yeah, talk to you guys soon.